What's going on, you lovely people? Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Self Discovered. My name is Chris. I am your lovely host today. As always, first things first, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to go on this little journey with me. Like I said before in the first episode, which by the way, if you have not gone and seen that episode, go ahead and go watch that. Put this one on pause. Go see that video, give it a like, and as well as give this video a like. Go ahead and do that right here. As well as subscribing. It really does help the show, and not only does that, but it also helps boost confidence in doing this. I thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity and this chance. And I almost messed it up. Well, I kind of did. I had messed it up. I had recorded an episode because again I want to do these weekly. I recorded an episode about maybe by the time this comes out 5 days ago, and I've just been so busy on editing and trying to get this done. I hadn't really had a time to work on it. So finally today I get a chance. I'm looking it over after I finished everything else I needed to do for the day. I just said, all right, now I get to crack open my work. And I'm reading it, reading over the episode, and I'm like watching it and trying to edit things, cut things out, and the audio was just terrible, absolutely terrible. It was cutting, and it wasn't really picking up a lot of what I was saying, and it was just not good. And I don't like giving out. If I was in high school, sure, I'd turn in a paper that was a little half-assed, but something like this, I don't want to half-ass it and you know um, waste your guys' time and value. So, like I said last week, these are things that I'm going to be doing every week, at least once a week. If something does happen where it's a good story, or I just got something I gotta get off my chest, yeah, maybe do one of these more than once a week, possibly twice a week. My goal is to expand to like a different variety of shows. I'd love to talk about football or I don't watch it a lot as I used to, but getting back into like pro wrestling or video games, movies, TV, comics. Those are all my bread and butter, and I would love. I've always thought about expanding to like doing my own kind of network and whatnot. But at first, I think this is a good starting ground, so that way you guys get to know me, I get to know you, you get to know a little bit how I operate, and then as an audience, you give me the information on what I need to do to help engage you guys further and expand our horizons. There's days when, of course, I want to talk about like mental health and things that I feel passionately about, and what I feel like is has been benefiting me as far as as a young adult trying to get through our current state of the world, which is pretty fucking nuts, man. It's pretty crazy. Um, but also just not trying to lose that creative child inside. And I think a lot of people lose sight on that. They don't realize how important it is to keep your creativity and your mind just allowing itself to go and just expand on your creative ideas. I think a lot of people just as soon as they get in, after high school, get into adulthood, whenever you become an adult, you lose a part of yourself and you lose that creative side. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard to get that back. And I never want to lose that. I'm a child at heart. I showed you guys my setup last week. I have stuffed Charizards and Funko Pops and Transformers and Legos and all these things. Like I'm not ready to give up on the kid inside of me, and I don't want him to feel like he has to be bottled up and left left in the back of the room. So I'm trying to reestablish myself and I wouldn't really call this a rebranding. This has been what I've wanted to do. I've just been so anxiety ridden and nervous to actually like pull the trigger on it, you know? Uh so yeah, so this is more long form content. This is more of just me talking to you guys. And I know this is a weird angle, but as you can see, there is a bed behind me. And if you are listening to this as an actual podcast, I am currently just in my room, recording this at like 12:30 at night. Because like I said earlier, I have to re-record this. So this is the angle I'm going to do. I'm going to try my best to keep this angle with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and just adjust here real quick. I apologize in advance. If there's some dead air, I'm doing my best to keep you guys in the know. I'm just moving some things around real quick, trying not to make too much noise. Because once again, the queen of the house is currently taking her nightly rest, and we definitely don't want to do the bad thing and wake her up from that. Actually, so I'm just going to adjust here real quick. Awesome. And yeah, now I think this is a good angle. I think this is better. I think this is a lot better for us. So yeah, I really want to do more long form content where it's just me and you one on one, talking not only about life but about entertainment, because that's what I went to college for. I went to college. I had a major in technical production theater. Well, okay, the correct title was theatrical production something something, and then and then I had a minor in cinematography and broadcasting. I grew up watching, if you guys are like film fans and YouTube film fans, I grew up watching a lot of Screen Junkies. I watched Real Rejects, Schmoes Know, which is now went from Schmoes Know to AMC Movie Talk to Collider Movie Talk to Schmoes Know again, and then to um, SEN, now The Big Thing, hosted by Christian Harloff. Shout out to Christian. I've been following his work for years now, since I've been like a freshman in high school, maybe even before that. Actually, yeah, I started watching him and Mark Ellis's their videos on movies and whatnot even before, like in middle school. So those are a lot of the things that have inspired me to do what I like to do and talk about movies and engage that child side, because they're a big part of my life. And it's also like, just for me, it's really important because I feel like movies really do impact our world, whether it be positive or negative. And what goes into these things, I don't think a lot of people take too much time to realize. Like, not a lot of people would know that we're gonna get into it later, but the Barbie movie that just came out with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, that movie was supposed to star Amy Schumer, um, and it was supposed to be a totally different movie. Uh, and they took the time. I think it took them like, the movie was in production for like almost like a decade, and they took time to like rewrite it, redo it, and then made it into what it is. And now it's like an award-winning film, which is amazing. Good for them. I've seen the movie, and it's absolutely. We'll talk about it later on, but it's absolutely amazing. Uh, Not a lot of people would know that. Not a lot of people would know what got into. You go into Iron Man 2, and you see Don Cheadle as Colonel James Rhodes instead of Terrence Howard from Iron Man 1. You would never know it was because of a money thing or scheduling. You always hear the term scheduling conflict. It's usually not that. It's always like money, or whether or not they believed in the project, or something sour. Something went sour or whatnot. But not a lot of people would know that because they're not in the know. Um, the three Spider-Men that we've had Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire. Andrew Garfield's first movie was supposed to be Tobey Maguire's fourth movie, and Tom Holland's third movie was originally written as Andrew Garfield's third movie. You know, they were all um, within a deal with Sony, and you know, you don't make the movie, you lose the rights to that. Not a lot of people know that either. Sony actually owns the rights to Spider Man, not Marvel. That's why they never had him in the MCU for as long as they did up until I believe it was 2016 when Civil War came out. Not a lot of people would know that, but that's what I loved learning about. And those the film reviewers and newscasters that I've talked about prior, like the Schmoes Know, like Real Rejects, Screen Junkies, Fandango Movies, and you know, in its heyday, Collider Movie Talk and Collider Studios in general were a big impact on that. And I still follow most of those channels to this day, and I really do admire the work on that. So that's basically what I like to do is just learn that type of information because I find it fascinating, especially when it comes to comic books. Like I bring up the quote that I live and die by, quoted to me by the late great John Schnepp, who I had a privilege in meeting when I was fresh out of high school. Told me to be patient, stay learning when I asked him for advice on getting into the industry and learning how to navigate everything. He said, be patient and stay learning. Um, you know, he was a big impact on me and how I viewed life. And I think it's important that first word, patience. And this is what I'm going to get into today is that word. This is going to be the basis of this entire episode is the word patience. Patience can mean a lot of things. It can mean, you know, you have to be patient for different forms of things, whether it's for, you know, your next check to come through, or patient on an acceptance letter for college or a job, patience on mending relationships, whether it be friendships or, you know, romantic relationships, family relationships sometimes can be broken, sometimes they can be mended. It takes patience in order to do that. Um, and I think for me as a young adult, I really have had to learn the way of patience. Um, I think that, you know, in order to establish who I am, I've had to really take the time to delve into who I am and what it is I do that makes me tick and like what are my reasons for going on and pursuing the career I want to pursue. And that takes patience. It takes patience to figure out who you are. You know, when you go into high school, a lot of people are going to tell you that you have to figure out exactly who you're going to be, what you want to do, how you're going to get there. Right before college, you have to figure that all out at 16. Brother, I at 16, I didn't even know how to like fully like write an essay. Like I was still trying to figure that out. I was still trying to figure out doing how like pre-algebra, dude. You know what I mean? Like you want me to figure out my whole life at 16, you know? Um and a lot of it was, you know, difficult cuz I think that's like so much pressure on a kid. At least for me it was. And For me growing up, it was really difficult for me to find my kind of like find my place, because as a kid, it was always just, whatever my parents said it was, that's what it is. And, what everyone told me I had to do, that's because, they knew what's best for me. But honestly, they don't, what they don't teach you when you're becoming an adult is that, you don't even know what's best for you. So how are you going to tell people what's best for them? You know what I mean? One of the best advice I've given or I've been given was that you cannot, you can't, because I'm one of those people who strives to make sure I can do the best I can for others. I'll put myself, in the background, and I'll put everyone else in front of me to make sure that they're okay. Because if I see that they're doing good, it makes me feel good. But somebody when I was younger had always told me that, you can't fix other people until you fix yourself. And that takes time. And it really, 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 really like took me a long time to figure that out and like really justify what that meant. Because it wasn't just, taking the time to see who you are on the outside as well as on the inside, but on the inside, it wasn't just the mental aspect of who you are. It's the emotional side. It's the the essence of like who you want to be as a person. Do you want to be a person that, people can go to when they have a problem, or do you want to be that person that can just, you know, just avoid everybody and just care about themselves? I look to myself as somebody who like if we haven't talked in like 4 years and we ended, haven't the reason we talked or haven't talked is good terms. Like it's just we haven't been able to catch up. If you texted me one day or called me and said, "Hey, you know, how are you? Do you mind helping me with this thing?" I'll be there. You know, um, that's how I would like to view myself, and that's how I would like to be remembered. Um, but it takes time to develop these skills and those traits. So for me, like going back to the whole high school thing, I didn't know who I wanted to be in high school. I told myself I was going to go into the military because, one, I was able to just get away from everything, and two, I was able to make some what I thought. I was like, oh wow, dude, I can make so much money, for just doing that, and people would respect me and da da da. And I thought that's what I had to do to get respect. Is like, oh, you just put on a uniform and you know do these things, and oh, people are automatically going to respect you because they have to, not because they want to, because they have to. And there's a difference in that, in my eyes. Um, so it took me a long time, again, patience to figure out who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be as a person. So that when I went into college, I figured out like my last year of high school, I figured out that I want to embrace my creative side. I want to embrace the storytelling, the you know the curious side, as well as develop the adulting skills and people skills and whatnot, because those are a given. You have to have those, but never let go of that child inside of you. So going into college, I really got to become my own and hone in on my craft and hone in on who I was. Being at school from 7 in the morning till 2 at night or 2 in the morning. Yeah, not 2 at night, but just working on shows and studying and being with friends and learning people's views and aspects. And that's why I really urge, even if you don't like school, at least do a semester of college or a year, because you'll never know who you truly are unless you interact with people you've never met. I think that's what high school's supposed to be. But for kids in high school, like you either just don't give a shit or everything's riding on your high school career. You don't get the time to hone in on who you are. It's always just like, oh, you got to get ready for this because it's going to prep you for this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to do this. And then you got to figure that out. And oh, well, you got to remember how to do this because it's going to help you out in like 60 years from now. But they never teach you on what it means to be you, how to figure out you. And I think that's really, really important, um, especially nowadays. So yeah, man, I took the time to figure out who I am, and learning that I don't want to be somebody that pushes people over, or you know somebody that doesn't want to just not be complacent, I guess. And it takes time to figure that out. I think for a lot of people, it's difficult to get out of that mental state of just going through the motions and just being like, oh, this is my life, this is what I do, this is how I do it, this is just what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and it doesn't matter. You give up on your dreams or your goals. Just the other day, I asked somebody like, "Oh, if you weren't doing this, like, what would you be doing? Like, is this your dream job?" And they said no. I work at a bar, and I asked the guy, and he's an electrician, and I was like, "If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?" And he was like, "Dude, I would write music." It's like, this is somebody who does not look like they would be a musician, like, at all. Um, is like looks like a typical blue collar kind of guy, like, in no indication was this person a fan of old school jazz music or anything like that. And they said, no, yeah, I would be a writer, like a musician, like writing jazz music and performing in nightclubs and like coffee shops and stuff like that. And I was like, holy shit, dude. And they said that they didn't want to, like, or not that they didn't want to, but they couldn't pursue that because it wasn't viable, you know? And there's some truth to that. Like a lot of the dreams that people have, especially nowadays, it just doesn't cover what we're doing now. And like, you look at an average apartment, it costs like almost $2,500 just to rent it, and that's about like a down payment for a house. Yeah. So it's hard nowadays to hold on to those dreams and hold on to who you are, because a lot of the times we just forget that and we just go through the motions. But if you could hold on to that and just have the patience to let things go the way they need to go, and remind yourself of who you are, and stay true to that, you take the time to understand yourself and structure things in a way that helps you combat all those things that tell you not to do certain things or be certain people, that a certain type of people. I feel like it will benefit you in the long run. So it takes time, it's difficult, but you're going to figure it out. And I hope that, me rambling for almost 25 minutes now, I hope that helps you guys out. And I hope it at least does something for you. And like I said, I love talking about entertainment, so we are definitely going to do that. And I'm going to roll into something I feel that relates to the word patience. Is, like I said, our word of the day. Patience is a virtue, as some people may say. I don't remember the quote, who specifically quotes that, but it is a virtue. Patience can come in multiple ways, and you can use it for multiple things. And someone who patience was not on their side and definitely rushed into something and it went terribly wrong uh, was recently at this past Golden Globes, and it was this gentleman Joe Coy. If you're listening, I just pulled up an image of him. Joe Coy, famous comedian. He's been on television shows. He's done a few films. Very wonderful comedian. I've actually gotten the privilege to see some of his shows, or a show of his, and I've seen his work on TV. He's a very funny guy. Would definitely would definitely give him a search. So I find out, you know, on Twitter or X. Sorry, X. Now it is. I find out on X that he's hosting the Golden Globes, and I was like, oh wow, 10 days, away from the Golden Globes, they just announced their host. Hopefully he has some material. And I'm like, it's Joe Coy. He's a professional comedian. He's performed in arenas, in theaters, and stadiums and comedy clubs. I'm sure he could pull it out, and it's probably going to be a good time. I had not seen a lot of the film and television that came out this past year, so a lot of the awards I uh, wasn't really like looking forward to. Um, and so I didn't watch. I didn't watch the award show. I woke up the next morning and I just see people going, "What the hell happened on this and this for Joe Coy said this and da da da," and I was like, "Wait, whoa, 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 whoa." I was like, what are we talking about here?" So this man, again, professional comedian, did not have the wherewithal to realize the audience he has. And again, a lot of people nowadays are like, "Oh, people are just soft. They don't know how to handle comedy anymore," and da 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 and yada yada. I'm like, that may be true, but a very famous comedian, one of the funny comedians I look at, George Carlin. I'm gonna misquote this, so I apologize in advance for any George Carlin fans. Um, but he said, along the lines that anything you say can be funny. Comedy can be from anything. Uh, So anything you can say or say can be funny as long as you structure the joke properly, right? As long as you take the time to get your joke out properly, make sure it's structured well, make sure the punchline hits. Yes, technically anything you can say can be funny. Now he uses an example in one of his stand-up sets. Um, he uses I'm gonna have a trigger word. He uses the makes a grape joke. Now, replace one of the letters, you know what I'm saying. A joke in that sense. I would never make a joke about that. That is not my wheelhouse of comedy. I'm more of a self-deprecating kind of guy. That's my go-to. Um, but yes, so that was a quote from George Carlin, which I totally botched. Um, so I guess when Joe Coy going into the Golden Globes, he immediately says that didn't really have time to prepare. He had a very late notice, and it's been a dream of his to host an award show like this. And a lot of people say that, like, "Oh my gosh, I've been watching since I was a child, and oh, this is like a dream come true, and it's so amazing that we all get to be here." And yada yada. Like you do that shtick, right? But when you get into your own jokes and it's like deer in the headlights, and you could read the room, right? You could read the crowds, and when they're just not responding to you, you start to panic, and you're just rambling, to the point where you just make jokes that you don't even think are funny, and that you don't, at the moment you don't even think they know if they make sense, which goes into um, a quote that I have here. While Coy's act played heavily into the age-old practice of celebrity ribbing, targeting everyone from Miss Meryl Streep to Taylor Swift, which we'll get into right now. His jokes, more often than not, felt flat with both attendees and viewers at home, especially as he ventured into the rabid and/or one in particular um, egregious instance, bald misogyny. Coy's lowest point in a decidedly unfunny monologue was cracking a joke about Barbie. Now, like I said, Barbie was a film that came out this past summer. It starred Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, America Ferrera, and a few other actresses and actors that I am not remembering at the moment. It was a beautiful film. I think it was great. It really explained the importance of um, women opinion and why this particular doll. Yes, it is a doll. So I'll get into the quote here, where he makes the comparison to another film that came out, Oppenheimer, which was about the scientist who created the atomic bomb, that came out at the same time. And he said Oppenheimer was based on a 72 721-page Pulitzer Prize winning book about the Manhattan Project, and Barbie is on a plastic doll with big boobies. Um, the key moment in Barbie is when she goes from perfect beauty to bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet, or what casting directors call character actors. Um, that's his quote. It definitely fell very flat. It was the equivalent to a fart in an elevator. And not a lot of people were happy. Men and women both were unimpressed by the joke, especially the women for obvious reasons. Now, like I said, I did see this film. Yes, there is a lot of female actors in this movie. It is a movie about a female doll that represents women in America. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of women in this film. There was indeed, a fact, a lot of females in bikinis in the movie. It happens, you know. That's part of that's a part of the trope when it comes to the to a character like Barbie. If that's and there's a lot of people online agreeing with that joke and not taking it as a joke but taking it as a statement and saying that's all that movie was good for. If that's what you think, you definitely either did not see the movie or were not paying attention to the movie because that is not what this film is about. It's about women rediscovering themselves, and it's really an eye opener on what it means to be a woman in modern society. What Barbie is supposed to represent, the figure, the character, is supposed to represent in modern society. What it's supposed to be and what women actually are. You know, the unequi- the unmistakable example of what a woman should be. Um, in America Ferrera, uh, um, one of the leads in the film, gives an amazing monologue on what it means to be a woman in modern society. And it's very touching. It's very eye opening, not just for the women, but for the guys as well. Because, like I said, Ryan Gosling, who, for in my opinion, stole the show, um, just with his comedy alone, describing what it means to have the patriarchy in America, what it means, for typical manhood and all these things. Like it's just a very well done movie describing the not only the opinion but the structure of society as a whole. Um, and it was great. It so no, it's not a movie about a doll with assets. It's a lot more than that. Not to discredit Oppenheimer, it's literally a period piece on a very very dark point in American history. Also, haven't really seen. I did not see Oppenheimer. I have not yet. I definitely do want to see the film. So that was strike one, I guess, with multiple people when it came to the Golden Globes. And you would think after you have one bad joke, you would definitely stop and you would definitely not go on and try to, try to unimpress people. And he said in an off script moment, not scripted within his monologue, he was saying that he got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue, um, and then he said, yo, shut up. This is a quote, an off script quote. He says, yo, shut up. You're kidding me, right? Slow down. I wrote some of these, and they're the ones you're laughing at. Period. End quote. To then he goes and says that he had writers to help him with his monologue. Now, I am of the belief, because again, I not in college, but I did grow up admiring stand up comedy. A lot of these comedians write their own jokes, and in some facets, some of them steal other people's jokes. It's a thing. Comedians steal other people's material all the time. You can look up videos on that. It's very well documented, very well known. Um, this you throwing other people under the bus because your jokes aren't landing, and then saying the ones that are landing are the ones that you're taking credit for. It's just a bad look, dude. It's already a bad look, and having to admit that to a wide audience doesn't really help your case here, you know. So you would think after that gigantic, atomic bomb, no pun intended, uh, you would think he would stop with the jokes and the ribs at everything else. No, no, not even close. One of the other jokes that he did make was about a certain individual. You may or may not know her. She's an independent artist. Kind of under the radar. You know, just a newer singer songwriter. She's very not really well known. Her name is Taylor Swift. He made a joke about her, and not only did he make a joke about her, but he also made a bad joke about the show that he was hosting, as well as making a joke about a multi-billion-dollar company in the NFL. And that is in quote saying the big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL. At the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. I swear. In which Joe Coy had said, and then immediately, I had to look up the video. They cut to a camera of Taylor, and she is just sipping her drink, giving him the death eyes, just like, just not having it. Sorry, not only was I trying to set the example for everyone watching, but I also had a dry mouth. Immediately said sorry. And I guess, well, not I guess, you can watch the video. It was silent in that theater, or the venue that they were in. It was very silent. And to the point where he goes and doubles back on it and says that he, didn't mean to insult her. He was just trying to be cute. He was like, "Oh, in fact, I am a Swiftie. That's what we Swifties, Taylor Swift fans call ourselves. Um, not myself. I'm an honorary Swiftie. My girlfriend is a Swiftie herself, but I'm considered an honorary Swift. A Swifter. I don't know. He meant it as a compliment, acknowledging her. Within his monologue, apparently it was supposed to be flirty. One dude, her boyfriend will like wreck your shit, so don't say it's flirty or being cute or flattering. Second of all, who are you to like try to hype her up? Like she's one of the most like popular women in the planet. It's pretty odd that you think because you mention her, everyone's gonna be like, oh, Taylor Swift. Oh my god, like that's amazing. No, that's not the case, buddy. That's not the case. So not only did he make a terrible joke regarding, uh, a film that's based, it wasn't a good day for jokes about women that day. Not only did he make the shitty joke about Barbie, but he also just out of nowhere threw a fastball and struck out with a Taylor Swift joke. So after all the bad press and the immediate negative responses, he goes and says and calls, not only put through again, like I mentioned prior, threw his writers under the bus, but also goes and calls every person in attendance a marshmallow because they were soft. Um, he said, "A lot of marshmallows, man." He said, "They're delicious, but goddamn, they're soft. I just come from a different time. I see the changes that are happening. I get it, but goddamn, can we fucking laugh at ourselves? Yes and no. Yes and no. And like I said, in the quote prior, he said that he got the gig 10 days ago, and he said that some of the jokes that people were laughing at, those were the ones he wrote. So the ones that they weren't laughing at, like a Taylor Swift joke or a Barbie joke or any other joke that he said, uh, those weren't his. Those were the writers. So you don't get mad at him, get mad at the people who wrote those jokes. But in reality, it was actually him who just wrote everything. That's just my, you know, humble opinion. Yeah, it's not don't do that. Don't do that. Now do I think this is gonna ruin Joe Coy's career? No, he's currently on tour right now. Yeah, I think he's gonna be fine. I think he's definitely gonna be okay. But uh, some people just don't know how to yeah, you gotta read the room, man. You gotta read the room. Um, so that was a big news topic in the world of entertainment recently. Another big topic going into like um, the nerd culture of it all. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I just recently got my girlfriend to become a huge Star Wars mega nerd. So shout out to all the nerds out there. We got another one. Um, uh, Recently, at this past Star Wars celebration, which is their like Comic Con, like their like a convention kind of thing. Um, at their recent celebration, they announced that there was going to be a movie specifically on the character Rey, played by Daisy Ridley, which in fact should have been coming out if COVID and a writer strike wasn't a thing. It should have been coming out around this time now, but because of, you know, a little thing like a pandemic or a writer strike, which was definitely well deserved. Also, that's another thing too. Going back to the Joe Coy thing, you're gonna criticize writers who have literally been fighting for their jobs like this past summer. Like you're gonna criticize them. You're gonna throw them under the bus. Like come on, man. You know what I mean? But yeah. So like I said, there was going to be a film about Ray, um, directed by, and I apologize in advance for butchering the name, but Obaid Chinoy. Obaid Chinoy. Again, I apologize in advance and current for botching that. Please forgive me. But she was going to direct this film, and she is quoted in saying that it was about time that there was a female director in Star Wars, and she was going on and saying how happy she was to be a part of the project and what it meant for her, and again saying that it was about time there was a female director taking charge in a Star Wars project. Now I don't know if she was aware, but one of the head producers and also the head of Lucasfilm, which is the studio that produces and makes the Star Wars films and the Indiana Jones projects, which some of you did not know. Those are the same company. Yeah, crazy, right? The head of Lucasfilm is actually a woman. She's produced almost every Star Wars project. She's also produced every Indiana Jones property, as well as other independent films from Lucasfilm. There's also been several female directors for Star Wars films. I mean, Star Wars television. You look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which was directed by Deborah Chow. She was also directed a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian. I believe she directed an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. You also have daughter of Ron Howard, um, Bryce Dallas Howard. She's a credited actress. You might know her from most notably recently the Jurassic World films. She is not only a actress, but she also directed some episodes as well of The Mandalorian. You have female, obviously, an abundance of female characters within the Star Wars series. So saying that you're the only one now, if you're going off of like you're the first female director for a film, I get it. I get it. And now I don't want this to seem like a dude, you were just, supporting women and now you're going to bring women down. Hold on, guys. Hold on to your seats. That is not what's happening here. Trust me, this is all going to come back around. Um, if you were to say you were the first female director for a Star Wars movie, give you all the credit, give you all the praise, that's amazing. But to diminish and overlook everyone else who's put in their work and their successes, whether they'd be big or small, it kind of makes it look bad. Especially with a couple of years ago, I believe she was on a press tour for the live action Snow White film that's going to be coming out soon. And she is quoted in saying that she wants to make men uncomfortable and that she loves making men uncomfortable in regarding her films. Um, to which then this sparked conversation of like, women shouldn't be handling Star Wars and da 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 da, and it's always everything has to have a female led character and this kind of like these story beats and yada 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 yada. It has to appease the women. Guys, you do realize that there's been many a female characters for the early 2000s, right? May I interest you in a Sarah Connor, Ripley, going back to Star Wars, Princess Leia, Adrian from Rocky, Grease. Um, I can name a couple of others. Insert any 80s movie with a badass female ever. Kill Bill. It wasn't a great movie, but Halle Berry's Catwoman. you know, there's been an abundance of strong female-led characters and or movies. Wonder Woman. You know, um, nobody had a problem with those because they had killer action and either the women were just in tight-fitting clothes and or less than article of clothing, or they were just a badass character. Um, that's all you care about. I think again, like going back to the whole directing thing, I have no problem with female directors in a female project. If anything, I encourage that. I think what the problem is that you're, especially nowadays, and it kind of makes sense, but studios and writers, not studio writers, but studios nowadays feel like they have to appease a certain audience because they feel like they're not reaching that demographic. Well, let's use Marvel for example, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Uh, Kevin Feige made all the he produced all those films, going back from Iron Man up until Avengers Endgame. It's a masterclass on what they did throughout that decade. Um, but if you do look at those first few films, we'll look at Scarlett Johansson as an example. That first scene that she's in Iron Man 2, she's projected as this like sexy redhead and not this badass, character who can probably kill you. No, in fact, she's just somebody who wears tight red, tight black leather, and you see a scene of her in a bra, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, that's amazing." You look into all the Avengers movies, and she could have on her suit, like the black tight suit, but she has to have some cleavage, or a form of skin showing. Uh, it's not that you're not reaching the demographic. You have the demographic, you know. You're just not. You're not. You're like oblivious. We don't want female characters so we could goo goo gaga over them. We want strong female characters because of the stories that they're involved in. I think one of the best examples I can give for modern day, keeping it within Star Wars, is the Ahsoka series. Now, it does have a male writer and a male director, but the story within itself is a strong female character within a strong story. And the reason for that is because the story took time to develop, whether it be through the writing or the actual acting within itself. It took the time to establish its characters. And if you don't take the time, especially, and this isn't just like superhero movies or Star Wars or whatever, this is just films in general. If you do not take the time to establish your characters, whether they be a strong male and or female lead, you're going to have a half-assed product. A lot of studio meddling is like, oh, we need explosions, we need this, we need that, we need it to look cool so we can make money. That's not the point, dude. The whole point of having a good film, whether it be um, a commentary piece like Barbie, or a period piece like Oppenheimer, or you go balls to the wall like an action-packed, you know, action movie like a early Transformers film. Those are three different types of films. One of them is just studio involvement and just like, we need this, 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 and this, just so we can make money. Instead of taking the time to actually develop your story and develop your characters. If you'd have, the right resources and the patience, see what I tell you comes back. If you have the patience to figure out what your story is going to be and the characters in place, it's not going to matter who they are or what they are or what they look like. As long as the story allows itself to be successful and, coherent, it's not going to matter. So I think, going back to this Miss Chinoy's, I wouldn't say situation, but topic. Um, I feel like there was nothing wrong in what she said. It just could have been worded a little differently. Because again, I think it does undermine the other work from the other women involved within this property. Um, and if you want to make a piece of art that is just, rah, 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 women are superior, that's fine. That's your prerogative. Cool. As long as you acknowledge, you are going to have some comments of like, dude, are you like, oh my God, women, oh, am I right? Jeez Louise. Um, and that's being a polite way of doing that. But yeah, it takes time, and I think, you know, there's not there's not a shortage in there's no shortage in stories, but there is a shortage in good development of stories, you know? And I think that's the biggest thing to learn from here. You take the time to figure out what your character's going to be, what they're going to look like, and how they're going to react, and what their emotions are. take the time to figure out your story, figure out the atmosphere, figure out the tone, and the structure, figure out how to, set your where to set your story, where to set the environment. Take the time to set up the goals and aspirations of what your character needs to overcome. And you need to take the time to just make genuine art. And going back to reality, because again, I think film is a good gateway into reality and escape from reality every once in a while. Take the time to develop your character, who you are, who you want to be, um, overcome the obstacles that you have in place. And if you do that, I feel like everything else will be set in place, but you have to have the patience and the wherewithal to know that it's not going to happen overnight. And the things that you want to be and the person that you want to become may not be who you actually want to be. It may not be the thing that you want to do. Don't rush into it. Just pump the brakes. You know, you take the time, develop who you're going to want to become and what you're going to want to do. You might have something as successful as a award-winning film like an Oppenheimer, like a Barbie, um like a Parasite, or um Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm trying to name all these good movies as an example of what it means to actually take the time to develop your thing. You could either do that, or you could jump in, half ass and develop something that's not that desirable and not that memorable, like a bad monologue in Joe Coy. It's all in perspective. It's all on what you want to make it. And however you want to make it, I hope it becomes um, good for you. And with that being said, I hope you take the time to love yourself and love those around you. Please be good to yourself and do whatever you need to do to get past the next day, the next hour, the next minute, and the rest of this upcoming year. It is a new year, it's a young year, so do what you need to do to love yourself. I will be here next week. I hope you will be too. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, or if you have some comments and some topics you want to bring up, or just some questions that you want to just ask, please don't be afraid to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and concerns, um, and I will read every single one of them. So thank you so much, and also be mindful of yourselves. Go ahead and drop a like on this video as well, and subscribe so you know when to see the next episode, which I'm going to get out soon. I'm going to, once again, if I can do more than one a week, I will definitely do one more than one a week. But as of right now, we'll just go one step at a time, one step at a time. I love you guys very much. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and then, like I said prior, as the great John Schnepp had told me, be patient, stay learning, and as always, te amo, amigos, amigas, gracias, familia, adios. I will see you guys next time.